Welcome into the Wiltfong Whiparound with Steve Wiltfong. Today's Monday, September 23rd, and I'm your host, Josh Newberg. We got the best insider in the country on this show, Steve Wiltfong. He's going to hit on the biggest developments of the weekend, some flips, some commitments. We got it all, so just sit back for the next 20 to 30 minutes and get caught up on all things recruiting. But before we get going, guys, do me a favor and hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. This is the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube, so jump on board and hit subscribe for me, please. All right, also, there's some of you out there that are thinking about joining On3. I can do it and get you there for just $1. That's right, On3 for just $1. All you got to do is go to on3.com and use promo code FONG1. That's on3.com for just $1. Go use promo code FONG1. All right, let's get to it. Bring in my guy, Steve Wiltfong. And Steve, we got to start out in Boulder, Colorado, where the Buffs win in overtime 38-31, a thriller that we got to watch live together on that recruit reaction show. We got to watch the final ending of that one. And there was also some big-time recruits on campus. You put in a new pick. We're going to get to that. But let's talk about some flip targets that Coach Prime had on campus, namely Byron Baldwin, safety, another safety, Antonio Branch, and offensive tackle Carde Smith. Let's start with Byron Baldwin, who you put a flip pick in. Now, he's committed to Indiana and has been for some time. What are you hearing on Baldwin in Colorado?
Well, talking to sources that spent time with Baldwin during his official visit to Colorado over the weekend, late Saturday night, early into Sunday morning, I was told that Baldwin was a heavy trend towards Colorado. I had a chance to talk with Baldwin on Sunday about his visit. He said the atmosphere was crazy. What's continuing to excite him is the experience, simplicity, and connections that the coaching staff has. He thinks it's a place that can get the best out of him. He's currently committed to Indiana. I think he left Colorado feeling really good about flipping to the Buffaloes. I could certainly see him still doing that, but I think he's had some dialogue with Indiana. We'll see if they've been able to calm those waters. Indiana trying to get him back to campus for the Nebraska game, but Colorado certainly made a big move for the four-star safety during his visit to Colorado.
All right. Now, we know Dion is going to get his skill, guys. He's going to get those great wide receivers, going to get great
He's going to get a flip.
But
he'll get a flip somewhere. Gets a big flip every cycle.
Absolutely. And there's one more I want to talk about. The big man himself was on campus, offensive tackle Carde Smith, who is committed to USC. He goes 6'6.5", 300 pounds. He's on campus for an official visit over the weekend. Now, we know the DBs, Colorado's sitting pretty for those DB flips. What about a potential offensive line flip?
Yeah, I talked to Carde Smith on Sunday night. We'll put his quotes up on the website here on Monday at On3. But he said his experience was great with the Buffs. Could be potential for him. He said because they are family ran and treat everyone like family there. And the other thing he pointed to, and we talked about it on the Recruit Reaction show, Josh, just the resiliency that they play with. They never give up when they're losing. So that was something that excited him, just the culture within the program to play till the final whistle and see what happens. And obviously for Colorado, they made enough plays in the end to beat a good Baylor team and get to 3-1. I asked him what's next for him, though. He said working on getting back home to USC. Talking to sources that spent time with Carde Smith and his mom on campus, it seemed like it was a heavy trend for Baldwin and Branch. Smith was going to take more work, but he sees a need. There's an opportunity for him to play early. Colorado's going to keep battling there. But again, he's calling USC home and looks to get back to Southern Cal for a game visit in the future.
Yeah, that would be a huge flip at a position in need for Colorado. Now, when looking at Colorado high school recruiting, they got a good foundation to this 2025 cycle. You got Quanell Farrakhan Jr. committed, Alex Graham, Chauncey Gooden. There's a foundation of players that are there. You take into account what, could flip to them that just came in this weekend. Do you think that this is going to be a spark? Are we heading into the period of time where Colorado is going to hit the high school ranks hard?
Well, I think that we're going to see more high school names pop up as the season continues. And for them, when they recruit high school players, they're looking for instant impact guys physically. You talked about Baldwin and Branch having the prototypical size in the secondary. They can step on a college campus right now and be able to hold up from a physical standpoint. Carde Smith is another guy who has good size at the offensive line position. I think any high school prospect that you see visit Colorado from here on out are guys that if they choose to play for Deion Sanders and company, they expect them to play right away.
Right. All right. Colorado fans, tap in, talk to Steve and I. How we feeling after that big Baylor win? And also, it sounds like high school recruiting is heating up. Who's your top target? Let us know. Comment section below. All right, Steve, let's go out to Eugene, Oregon. The Ducks are making some noise on a bye week. Oregon looking for some key flips. Just this weekend, Las Vegas offensive lineman Douglas Utu started trending to Oregon. The thing is, he's committed to Tennessee. Steve, you put in a prediction for a flip here. What are you hearing?
Well, working that story with my colleague Chad Simmons, we're hearing that Oregon is the program that's gaining a lot of momentum behind the scenes for the Bishop Gorman offensive lineman, who Oregon covets as an offensive tackle. Mm-hmm. That's the position he wants to play on the next level. When David Sanders Jr. committed to Tennessee, that's when Oregon really ramped it up and went in hard on Utu, trying to show him that he's the number one player at that position on their board. Offensive line is a key spot for Oregon this year. They're going to lose 6 of their top players on the depth chart following this season. 6 of their top 7 players will be gone. So there's an opportunity for players like Utu to come in and play right away. They view him as an instant impact guy, same as they do with Dimitri Manning and potentially Zayari Addison. Oregon also has Utu's teammate, Ale Kalanivalu, committed, but he's expected to go on a mission. So we kind of put him in the 2027 class. So offensive line, huge need for Oregon this cycle. And at the end of the week, Oregon was a program that had a lot of buzz for Douglas Utu. Josh Heupel and company aren't going to lay down and just let them roll out to Eugene, though. And these two programs have already had some epic battles on the trail this cycle. Tennessee won the last one, flipping Deshaun Brame from Oregon. Oregon trying to return the favor with Douglas Utu.
Yeah, you see these recruiting battle lines being drawn. Now, Oregon is also making some noise with an Alabama commitment. 5-star corner Dijon Lee. He admits, hey, I've been talking to Oregon. So, Steve, what does it mean that Dijon Lee and Oregon have open lines of communication? Should Alabama fans be concerned here?
Well, Oregon was just on a bye week this past week, and Dan Lanning was out in California extending new offers, shaking some trees on 2025s committed elsewhere. And Dijon Lee's a prospect that they're not going to go away on. And Josh, we talk about this all the time. The recruiting season has its phases, and there's going to be one more phase here in November, the final offer phase. And how was your season? How is your depth chart shaping up? Who are you going to go hard on at the end of the cycle? And is that an opportunity that is going to make someone think twice about their first decision? And Oregon is keeping Dijon Lee warm and vice versa. And we'll see where that one continues. But Dijon, he chose Alabama over Georgia the first time. And there was times where Georgia had some buzz, but I think ultimately Alabama led for most of his process. And he committed to the Tide, and I view that right now as a tough flip. But Oregon and Dan Lanning and company, they're going to try and get a seat at the table there at the end and see what happens.
All right. Can I take a stab at naming the recruiting seasons?
Yeah.
All right. So January to February, we got early offer season. March, a little bit into April, we got early commit season. May is eval season. June is visit season. July is commit season. August is let me get this decision done before my season starts season. Then we got early offer season, which is like the first 3-4 weeks of the high school season. Then we get into decommit season, which generally happens in November, coaching changes. Then we get into flip season, which is December. Did I hit it, all of them?
Yeah, except flip season moves up because the early signing period is now December 4th.
Yeah,
instead of
you're right. So
December
November,
21st.
December is going to be decommit and flip season all in.
Yeah, so we'll see how rushed that gets in November, where teams are trying to finish strong, clinch a college football playoff spot, and also get their players signed by December 4th. It'll be interesting, but you can't have flip season without commit season. Right. Commit season already happened. Spatula season is coming.
Coming soon. All right. Now, momentum is building with Oregon. We've been talking on and off, at different times they seem hot, they seem not. But now that we can see kind of the finish line in the distance here, do the Ducks have a shot to close strong in 2025?
Yeah, they're looking for a second straight top 5 class, and they're one of the programs that's going to try and swing the heavy spatula over the next couple months. They're going to want another offensive lineman. If they're able to land Douglas Utu, they're going to want another offensive lineman. Zach Staskowski is from Portland, currently committed to Washington. They offered him. They got the full court press going there. They want another linebacker. Dan Lanning in California this week. Noah McHale is the top target, currently committed to Texas A&M. Caleb Burns is an on 300 linebacker from Texas. That's a verbal to Baylor that's excited about his new opportunity from Oregon. Oregon doesn't have a tight end in the fold. Vander Plug's committed to Washington. That's someone that they're really pushing for this season. They continue to have dialogue with 5-star Lincoln Cure, probably a long shot for the Kansas State commit, but the phone lines are still warm there between Oregon and Lincoln Cure. And then on 300 edge rusher Hayden Lowe's committed to USC. Dan Lanning saw him when he was on the road last week. So your commits are not safe with Oregon in the picture, and they're going to be looking for a lot of flips over the next 2 months.
Oregon fans, how you feeling about this run to signing day? Let us know who's the big flip on your radar. Comment section below. All right, let's head out to the Plains. Auburn, they lose 24-14 to Arkansas. We're gonna get into it here. We're gonna deep dive on this Auburn big visit weekend. Yes, it seems like every weekend is a big visit weekend when you start the season out with 5 home games. All right, Auburn fans, they've been regulars at these Auburn games, Steve, but so is Deuce Knight. Deuce Knight, who's committed to Notre Dame, has made his 3rd visit to Auburn over the weekend. Now, Auburn loses. They throw a whole bunch of picks. I could see how Deuce Knight could look at that and be like, wow, my path to playing time is there. Do you think that Deuce Knight looks at the opportunity that he has, or does he see a struggling program?
Look, he's going to be back at Auburn for his official visit this coming weekend when the Tigers host Oklahoma. So it's an opportunity for Auburn to have a great performance against a really good opponent at home. And the recruit section is going to be rocking. Auburn's got a big visit weekend lined up for Oklahoma. Auburn's got big recruiting weekends every weekend. It doesn't matter the opponent, from Alabama, A&M to Arkansas to Oklahoma. And this will be Deuce Knight's 4th visit to Auburn this month. 5th visit going back to the end of July when you lump in Big Cat weekend. I think he certainly sees an opportunity to play right away for Auburn, and that's certainly an opportunity for him to come in and compete and play with a nice group of young receivers. And he has the skill set that Hugh Freeze is looking to be successful with at the quarterback position. I think he's going to visit Notre Dame for the Stanford game. I'm hearing that visit is in play, and so I expect him back in South Bend for the first time since the summer. He took a couple visits to Notre Dame in the spring and summer. I expect him back for the Stanford game. So we'll see what that means in his recruitment. Does he shut it down before that? Obviously, Auburn would love to see that happen, but Auburn having dialogue with other quarterbacks just in case Deuce Knight in this recruitment goes sideways. He's obviously their number 1 target. He is not committed to Auburn or decommitted from Notre Dame. Everything remains status quo with Notre Dame. His conversation with the coaching staff, there are other commits. And look, Notre Dame originally wanted to get him back for the Louisville game. Now they're going to get him back for the Stanford game. Ole Miss lying in the weeds for Deuce Knight as well. So we'll see what happens. Again, I think the intel favors Auburn here with all the visits, him talking to other recruits about potentially playing with him at Auburn. All that stuff's true. He just has not backed off his commitment to Notre Dame and has a return visit to South Bend on the radar that would come after 5 straight visits to Auburn. Excuse me, it's not 5 straight because he mixed in an Ole Miss visit. We'll see if Ole Miss gets him back for a game this weekend. I just think Deuce wants to make sure he's making the right decision. Again, he had a transfer situation his junior year where he left Mississippi to come to Tennessee to play some high school football. It didn't go well. So I think that when he makes his final decision where he wants to play college football, he wants to be absolutely sure. And he's sitting in a position where he doesn't have to feel rushed to make that final position for where he's at on these recruiting boards. And then the thing I keep going back to is, talking to his dad earlier in the season, the opportunity to play in the SEC is something that's very exciting to Deuce Knight, but is it enough to get him to back off a commitment to Notre Dame and go to Auburn or Ole Miss? We'll see. Another visit coming up to Auburn, and then, expected back at Notre Dame for the Stanford game.
All right, let's talk about Caleb Cunningham, the 5-star wide receiver, committed to Alabama, that at one time named Auburn his leader. That was a while ago now, but Caleb Cunningham, committed to Alabama at the end of the summer, was on the plains, visited for this game. What are you hearing coming out of this trip?
Well, he talked to Auburn Live and Cole Pinkston after his official visit and said that there's a question mark at Auburn at the quarterback position, and he still needs to see some stuff from the Tigers before he could seriously consider playing for them over Alabama. He believes in Alabama's offense. He believes in Alabama's quarterback depth chart, pointed to Keelan Russell specifically. Then certainly his future position coach, Jamarcus Shepard, his track record is about as strong as anybody's in college football of developing the wide receiver position. Now, Auburn, he's had some great visits. He gets along well with the young receivers in the room. He said if Deuce Knight were to flip to Auburn, maybe that could help. But it's obvious that Auburn is still playing from behind with Caleb Cunningham right now.
Yeah, you can tell that's happening. There was an official visitor on campus, offensive lineman Nelson McGuire. He left campus saying Auburn leads. So is this a priority target for the Tigers?
Yeah, they love Nelson McGuire. And even before that official visit, there was some buzz behind the scenes that Auburn is the program to beat for him. They would love to add him and Andrew Babalola. Look, this is a program that's still trying to get right and add all the competitive championship pieces to the program. I think they love the offensive linemen that they have in the fold right now, headlined by Broderick Shull. Ty Buster was a recent riser in the on 300, Tavares Dice, and they want to add McGuire and Babalola to the fold.
All right, let's head down to South Carolina. We got to talk some Clemson football because over the weekend, the Tigers dominated NC State 59-35. They had some important targets on campus, but none more important than Monroe, North Carolina 4-star safety Jordan Young. It's important because looking at the recruiting prediction machine, it shows NC State leads. We know he's going to make his decision next month, but Steve, did this visit put the Tigers in position to land Jordan Young?
I think it was a huge needle mover for him. NC State's a program that's had a lot of buzz coming into the season and early in the fall, but this was just a reminder of what Clemson's capable of, seeing two of his top schools play on the field. He told me his experience at Clemson was great. Fans showed up and showed out. Team handled business. Had a great talk with Coach Sweeney, Coach Kahn during his trip, and he talked about Clemson being a place he can compete for a national title every year and be 2 hours away from home. NC State's recruiting Jordan as a two-way player. Clemson likes him in the secondary. We'll see what happens moving forward. But he loves how family-oriented Clemson is. He had a great official visit there in the summer as well. And they're certainly one of the programs at the forefront of his recruitment.
Yeah, big-time player there. All right, Clemson lost a defensive lineman commit over the weekend. One of the biggest developments coming out of college football recruiting was Isaiah Campbell, top 50 prospect overall, reopening his recruitment. It sounds, Steve, like he was never really all in, wanted to check out a couple schools. Would Clemson still be in the running for him? Because it sounds like UNC, Tennessee kind of leading the pack right now.
Yeah, I think he's got a lot of love for Clemson. I just think that he wants to be sure of his process and his decision. And when you are committed to Clemson, you are not allowed to take visits to other schools. Tennessee's a place he's been trying to visit for a long time. He decommits. That allows him to now go out on the road, go see Tennessee, go see North Carolina, go see some other programs. And we'll see where Clemson stands with this. It's not very – have we seen Clemson come back around on a prospect that decommitted in the Dabo Swinney era? Maybe this will be the first one.
Yeah. All right. What other notable recruits did you talk to that were at that NC State Clemson game?
Quite a few, Josh. Clemson hosted one of their top offensive line targets in 2026, Ikini Ogboko. He's the number 4 offensive tackle in the land. He pointed towards Coach Matt Luke being one of the reasons why he is so excited about his opportunity with the Clemson Tigers. NC State's a school that he's also high on. So again, big for Clemson to get it done on the field. The number 6 cornerback in the country is Samari Matthews. He's been to Clemson a couple times now. Talked about playing for a prestigious coach like Coach Sweeney, and he's built a really good relationship with Coach Mike Reed. He plans on coming back. Clemson's certainly high on his list, and they hosted quite a few receivers. Donovan Murph, Connor Salmon, those are 2026 guys that I think they're in great shape for.
All right, we got to talk Michigan recruiting. Exciting win over the weekend, 27-24 over USC, a statement victory for the Wolverines. And it's a statement because they had some prime recruiting targets on campus. Linebacker Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng, he was there, and now we know he's coming down to a decision, and it's a heavy hitter. Texas, USC, Notre Dame involved here. What are you hearing? Do you think that Michigan did enough this weekend to land him?
Owusu-Boateng, I could certainly see him in Michigan's recruiting class. I think his best visits are when he comes to Ann Arbor. He said as much for his official visit. And then on this trip to Michigan, you see video of him standing on the 50-yard line inside the big house, turning around, soaking and playing in front of that potential atmosphere. He sees a need to play in year one in that hard-hitting defense that Coach Wink and company have. He said the environment was electric. He said his family loved it. He said every time he comes, Michigan keeps leaving good impressions on him. He knows he'll be developed on and off the field there. And I talked to Kanoa Winston, committed to Michigan. He said that Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng was hyped up after the game ended and said, I feel like this was the perfect game to come see what Michigan football is all about. Hard-nosed, gritty football. Michigan definitely, if they're not at the top of the list, they're near the top of the list. He's going to visit Notre Dame and Texas, continue through his process. But every time he visits Michigan, I think he can see himself in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, I've got to imagine that the impression that game left on a prospect like Boateng, like you said, just standing at the 50, just soaking it in. I mean, those are atmospheres that you don't forget about quickly. So speaking of making a big impression, there were some key 2026 recruits on campus. Who'd you talk to?
Well, I talked to just about everybody, but let's focus on the offensive line. Malachi Lee from Honolulu, Hawaii, returned. He's one of Michigan's top targets on the board, regardless of position. He said his weekend there was definitely worth the long plane ride, called the coaching staff top tier, said they felt welcome, and seeing the big win was something he'll never forget. Said the energy was crazy, and it's going to be really hard to top this experience. Oregon, USC, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, some of the programs that are definitely going to try and top that experience. Tyler Merrill is a 4-star offensive line recruit. They're battling Notre Dame and Notre Dame and Penn State on. Michigan is certainly one of the front runners there. I could see Michigan ultimately landing Zayden Krempin from Prosper, Texas. Brett Collegier, another from IMG Academy that had a fantastic experience. Michigan's going to recruit the O-line at a high level year in and year out, and they're doing great with those guys. And then they get a couple commits back, guys like Andrew Olish, the number 3 tight end in the country. It was his first game at the Big House. There's some other schools working hard to try and flip Andrew Olish late, Notre Dame being one of them. But for him to feel that environment, potentially see himself playing in games like that at Michigan was big, and he had a fabulous time.
All right. Michigan fans, talk to us after that game. How you guys feeling about recruiting? What do you think about Owusu-Boateng? Let us know. Comment section below. All right, let's talk LSU recruiting, because it was an exciting recruiting weekend at number 16 LSU, where they beat UCLA 34-17, and they improved to 3-1. Big news of the weekend was 5-star defensive lineman, the number 1 player in the 26 cycle, Jakeem Stewart. He shows up in Baton Rouge. There's rumors that he's going to reclassify up to 2025, meaning he's going to be a prospect in this class. Now, he probably won't be the number 1 overall prospect. That's Bryce Underwood. But he probably will be very highly ranked, would be a huge addition to what LSU currently has. So, Steve, what are you hearing on Jakeem Stewart coming out of this trip?
Well, coming into the season, source around Jakeem Stewart was pointing towards Ohio State and USC being in great position. But you and I both know that LSU is going to be a major factor in this one when it comes time to make a final decision. And he's been to Death Valley several times. He camped with Bo Davis and the LSU staff in the summer, had a great experience. Feels like Bo Davis can bring the best out of him. It was obvious he had a really good time on Saturday watching LSU beat UCLA. Frank Wilson does a great job recruiting these in-state players. He's a guy that folks around the community trust. And so certainly when this recruitment's all said and done, and he's working to be in the 2025 class, LSU is a program that I view as one that you could say could be hard to beat.
Yeah. All right. Now, DJ Pickett, he was on campus, the 5-star corner, who committed to LSU over the summer in July, right here on the On3 Recruits channel. He was among some of the top commits that were on campus. How did his visit go?
He had a great visit. Loved being around the commits, loved being in the locker room, got a chance to spend some time with Brian Kelly. Look, DJ and his family say all the right things. 1,000% committed to the Tigers. He'll be back for the Oklahoma game. He'll be back for the Alabama game. Miami's obviously doing all they can to get him to change his mind. Oregon trying to hang around in that recruitment as well. But as long as LSU keeps playing well and has good showings when he comes to campus, I think ultimately they could be hard to beat when it comes flip season.
All right, now getting ahead to 2027, we know Joe Sloan likes to recruit quarterbacks. He had some of the best in the 27 class on campus. Who was notable to you over the weekend?
Yeah, the number one quarterback in the country, Elijah Haven, was there. His dad, Kwame, spoke to him afterwards. They've been to LSU several times. They enjoyed getting back around Coach Kelly, Coach Joe Sloan. They talked to them for a few minutes. Thinks that those are guys that really love football and get the best out of their quarterbacks. Joe Sloan's going to go watch Elijah Haven playing his game on Thursday. Colton Nussmeier, obviously his older brother Garrett's the starter. Garrett threw for 352 yards and 3 touchdowns. Colton enjoyed watching his brother play well. Had a great time in that Death Valley atmosphere. He's going through his own process, so we'll see what happens. But obviously, LSU is high on his list. And then Trent Seaborn, state champion out of Alabama as a freshman last year. He, too, got a lot of time with Coach Sloan and Brian Kelly. He says that they make him feel like a priority, likes the way LSU develops their quarterbacks and the offense that they play in. So LSU at the top, near the top for all three guys very early in the cycle. But you know that anytime Joe Sloan's on your staff, he's going to have an authentic relationship with all the top quarterbacks that he's interested in. And that is the case with these three and their families.
LSU fans, talk to us. How do you feel about having Jakeem Stewart on campus? You know USC and Ohio State are hot after him, but getting him on campus this weekend was huge. Talk to us about it. Comment section below. All right, Steve, quick hitters. Let's talk about the latest on Isaiah Campbell. We hit on him earlier, but fresh off this decommitment from Clemson, he's a top 50 prospect overall. There's not many, if any, in the top 50 uncommitted at this point. So Isaiah Campbell, Andrew Babalola. All right, Isaiah Campbell, what are you hearing? Who are the main programs involved coming off this decommit?
Well, Chad Simmons had the news that he was reopening his process and decommitting from Clemson. Tennessee's a program behind the scenes we've heard has been in the picture for quite a while, trying to get him to campus. He can't get him to campus while he's committed to Clemson. That goes against the Dabo Swinney Clemson rules. So now that he's decommitted, he can restart his process, take some visits, and see some other schools. No question the Vols are a program he's high on. North Carolina gave up 70 points on Saturday. They need him. That's a school that he's looking at strongly. So we'll see what kind of move the Tar Heels make. They generally do a good job with top D-line targets under Mac Brown and company. But Tennessee, been a lot of buzz around them. Excited to see where it goes in that recruitment with the Vols and him as they push for a top 5 class.
All right, let's head to Tallahassee, where Florida State got their first win of the season over Cal on Saturday. And a win on the field equals an instant impact win on the trail. They landed commitment from Byron Lewis out of American Heritage. He was already planning on committing that day. I don't think it was due to FSU's win. But, Steve, just generally speaking, does FSU's win on the field impact them on the trail?
Well, I think it obviously helps a ton, losing those first 3 ball games in the fashion that they did to come out and beat an undefeated Cal team and get a win in front of some of their top commits. Solomon Thomas, 5-star interior offensive lineman. Programs like LSU are trying to chip away there, but coming out of the weekend, it still seems like he's pretty locked in with Florida State and Alex Atkins. CJ Wiley coveted receiver from the Peach State, committed to Florida State over Georgia, LSU, and others. Talked to a source at Milton High this morning, talked to some people that spent time with CJ over the weekend in Tallahassee. And the vibe is that he's still going to stick with Florida State. Now, certainly Georgia, we watched Georgia flip KJ Bolden from Florida State late in the cycle last year. We'll see if Kirby Smart and company have the Midas touch there. But I think that right now all signs point towards CJ Wiley still sticking with Florida State. They had their 2026 quarterback, Brady Smeagol, there. He's locked in. 2025 quarterback commit Tramel Jones was there. He's locked in. He'll be someone that'll come in right away and be able to push for early playing time. Chase Linton is an on 300 edge rusher I had a chance to speak with this morning. Said it was a good visit. He was glad he got to see him up close. Called him a historic program. And so getting the commits back, getting Usman Chroma there on 300 running back who's going to commit soon. Been a lot of Auburn buzz lately for him. Georgia's been trying to make a late push, but Florida State's always been one of the front runners. They're trying to pair him with Byron Lewis. Chroma had a good visit. There's some optimism around Florida State that they reminded him why he's been so high on the program, but certainly still a lot of buzz around Auburn with Georgia trying to change that narrative.
Yeah, good to hear for Florida State fans about CJ Wiley. That one, after suffering major decommitments from Myron Charles and Javian Hilson, also wide receiver Dalen McCutcheon. He was on campus over the weekend at Texas A&M. He also has a visit set to Texas. So hearing that CJ Wiley sounds more locked in, I think, than Florida State fans anticipated, that's good news. Maybe if the Noles can keep winning here, maybe that stems the tide. Maybe these decommitments that we saw early in the season, those are over, but it takes a couple wins in a row to kind of put that together, solidify things. All right, let's head to Notre Dame, where the Irish, they hosted 2 official visitors in the On 300. Talk about athlete Antavius Richardson and Tiandre Waverly.
Antavius Richardson is one of the most dynamic players in the state of Georgia. Notre Dame got on him early in the fall. He's having a terrific senior season. He visited this weekend. He's also high on Alabama and North Carolina. He's going to be back at Alabama this coming weekend. It'll be his second game visit in Tuscaloosa. But some folks that spent time with him in South Bend this weekend loved their position. And he had a great visit. Talked to him about the experience. He had a great visit, enjoyed his time around the coaches and the players and the fans, and talked about just how successful the culture is around the program. They want you to be on and off the field. It's a total fit for him. I think there's some people that spent time with him that think he'll ultimately end up at Notre Dame, but they got to get through another Alabama visit. And then Tiandre Waverly visited this weekend. Notre Dame has not offered yet. I think they're still working through some things, but if they do extend a scholarship to him, I think that would be soon. And I think Notre Dame would be the team to beat for the athletic tight end prospect who also took an official visit. And then they had one of their top 2026 prospects, regardless of position, in South Bend, Joey O'Brien, a safety from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He's been to Notre Dame a couple times. I think Notre Dame's the one to beat right now. He talked about his relationship with the coaching staff being why Notre Dame has an edge with him, from Coach Mickens to Coach Freeman and Coach Golden. So Notre Dame's sitting pretty with the long, rangy athletic safety, Joey O'Brien. Well, that will do it for today's episode of Wiltfong Whiparound. Thanks for tuning in. Please make sure you hit like and subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel so you are up to date on the best information from the recruiting trail. We have the Inside Scoop with Josh Newberg, the 5-Star Flex with Philip Dukes. We have the new Recruit Reaction Show every Saturday after the biggest games in college football. And then certainly the Wiltfong Whiparound, which will be back on Thursday. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on Thursday.